It's weird. You got a water glass? The water glass.
I hope that wasn't my routine.
Hold out your right hand. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to rub the glass. Watch, you won't believe this. Just watch the glass. I'm just going to rub just there. And there's nothing here on my fingers, no chemicals or anything. I'm just going to rub just there. Just create some energy and create some heat. Right then, it's actually started to happen already. Can you see that? It's starting to happen, look. And if I rub, it's starting to go right over. There's no heat, there's no chemicals, it's just starting to bend right over. Just put your other hand on top, right on top of the glass. Don't fight it, just allow it to go over. Okay. So rub, just let it go over, that's it, just let it go. That's great, let it go over. Fantastic. Just let it go a couple more millimeters, not too fast though, because it might shatter. Just let it go over, let it go. Just allow it to go over. That is fantastic. I don't want to go too much further because it might actually shatter.
Wow.
Put that on the table in front of you. Check it out for yourself now. Look, put it on the table.
That's cool.
Hi, my name is David Penn and thank you for purchasing my effect, my DVD on the bending wine glass. This is an effect that I first saw performed about 10 years ago by a guy called Ted Leslie. He was lecturing all over the UK and he talked about and performed his effect, the bending wine glass, which is described in his book, Paramiracles. He has an unbelievable method for bending a wine glass in a cabaret situation. Literally, the audience members see the glass bend, and then he has some very unique ideas to actually create the effect where wine glasses actually bend on the tables of people that are watching the effect live on stage. I love this effect. Unfortunately, I couldn't get hold of the special gimmick that Ted describes in his book, and I really wanted to create an effect where the glass bent in the spectator's own hands. That is the difference with my handling. What I hope to do is actually create a visual work of art in the spectator's mind where they actually see the glass bend over in their own hands whilst they're watching the effect. They actually experience it bending over. That is the difference. Ted's routine, it happens on stage, they're watching it happen. As we know, as magicians, if you can make an effect happen in the hands of the spectator, it's even stronger. That is what you'll be discovering on this DVD, The Bending Wine Glass. Okay, let's take you through how you prepare the glass for the bending wine glass effect. What you need to do, obviously you need to bend a glass first. This takes a lot of energy. You need to take the glass, concentrate. You're going to use the powers of your mind to do this. Take the first finger of your right hand, concentrate just in your mind, just think bend, and start to rub that bending wine glass stem. If the energy is not coming through, use two fingers. Say in your mind, say bend, bend stem, bend. And eventually, you'll start to discover that nothing will happen at all. So at this point, I normally tend to reach for my magic wand. This is my magic wand. It's available from most hardware stores. In the UK, you can get them for about £10 from places like B&Q, Homebase. They're literally plumbers, welders. In America, they'd probably be about $20. Naturally, you need to be a grown-up to be using one of these, and you need to follow all the instructions, especially all the safety instructions. You need to do it in a well-ventilated area. Obviously, right now I'm inside in the House of Illusion just for explanation purposes. But we're going to take you through right now how you actually do bend the glass. Now, this is probably not the best use for John Allen's destination box, another fabulous effect that I use all the time, available from John Allen, but this is what I use at every single gig. I normally end up going through this process in a hotel room or sometimes outside just behind my car in the car park of the gig. I've done this in some pretty strange places, I can tell you, but literally you need to prepare the glass before the show. The destination box is just the right size for me. So after you've gone to the gig earlier on and you've apparently looked at the room and borrowed one of the glasses off the table and just stuck it in your pocket. You go back to the hotel room, go out to the car park and prepare the glass like so. I stand it on the destination box, put the welder really close to it. You just need to fire this up. It takes about 30 seconds for it to get warm enough that you can actually bend the stem. And all you do, you just keep testing it every few seconds until it eventually does bend. Let's take you through that right now. So it takes about 30 seconds to do this. After about 25 seconds, I'll just test the stem, see if it's ready to bend. Not quite ready, but it's nearly ready to go. Starting to bend now. I'll actually turn the welder off and bend it over just as much as I need. And there we go. We've actually got quite a defined bend in the glass there. This is very, very hot indeed. You need to be very, very careful with this. I normally put this back into my boot and leave it there, then go back at the end of the meal when I'm going to do this trick on the person that's actually booked me. It's not a trick that I do at every table. This is for that special person that you really want to wow at the end of the gig. We've got a bend there. There's another one there that I did earlier. You can vary the bends slightly. So that one's got a bit more of a defined bend in there, in that glass. What I would say is, if you actually put a lesser bend in there, don't go for one that's sort of 45 degrees. When it comes to actually performing the effect later, it will be better for your angles. But I'll take you through the basic presentation right now. So now that you've prepared your glass ready to perform the effect, we need to talk about how you introduce this into the hands of the spectator and how you actually convince them that it's this glass. Let's say, for example, in the circumstances that you're actually performing the effect, there's lots of these glasses on the table. You will approach the spectators with this glass in your inside pocket. Now, there's a couple of ways I can do this. Effectively, what you've got to do is convince the spectator in their minds that the glass you are using to bend, that you actually bend in their hands, you've got to convince them that it came off one of the tables. Now, in a banquet situation, obviously you've got tables behind you, you've got tables in front of you, so you've got people behind the person that you're actually performing the effect for. So what I will do another effect first that I'll go into very shortly. I will bend something else. It might be a coin, it might be a fork, it might be one of their own keys. I'll go into some methods for this very shortly. And then I will turn round, and I will turn round and say to somebody on the table behind, and you actually saw this in the performance part of the DVD. Let's have a look at this again right now. I actually turn round and you hear the guy say, "That's my wine glass" at the end. Very strange.
My glass.
That's your glass.
I want to see what happened to somebody's room key.
And he's kind of complaining that I've bent his wine glass. That's because at the start of the routine, I turned round, said to the guy on the other table, who I've already performed for earlier, "Can I borrow this?" And I pick up this wine glass from his table. At the same time, I take the other wine glass out of my pocket, so I've got two wine glasses in my hand. I then turn around, this guy's seen me say, "Can I borrow this?" He doesn't really pay attention to the fact that I've got another glass in my hand at that point. I take the glass off him, I turn back, say to the lady that I'm performing for, "He said I could use this, we'll use this one," and I put this one down and go into the effect. It's weird. You got a water glass? The water glass.
I hope that wasn't my room key.
Let's try this. Now, a cleaner way to switch the glass is the method I prefer to use. Quite often I'm on a job with other colleagues of mine. It might be somebody like Nick Einhorn, Chris Priest, who I work with quite a lot in the UK. They've seen me perform this effect on numerous occasions and they know what's going on. What I will do before I start the effect where I'm going to bend a coin, a key or a fork, I'll say to them at their table, can I use this glass? And obviously this one's in my pocket at the time. I'll say, can I use this glass? They'll hand it over to me and I'll say, check it out, it's just a glass. I'll come to that in a few seconds. And as they're sat here facing the table, and I'm sort of sat slightly behind them, I will literally put this on the floor behind their seat. Now, remember in the performance section, there is such a strong moment of misdirection when you reveal the bent object. It could be the coin, could be their own key. When they see it bent, they will react. Now, at any point during this key bending routine, this coin bending routine, all you need a colleague of yours to just come along very casually and just remove that glass from behind their seat. So they literally take the glass away. This is something we did in the live performance, and it happens at every single gig. I get waiters to do it. I sometimes get DJs to do it, to literally help me out. So the glass that was behind their seat is removed. When they're reacting to the bent key, all I do is reach down behind their chair. At the same time, I take the glass out of my pocket and I just come up with the glass from nowhere. If they do look down, which they never do, they'll just see nothing there and they'll just assume that it's the same glass. I say they never do with confidence because I've actually performed this effect where I've picked up the glass, apparently, gone through the whole bending routine, and then walked away and picked up the glass myself at the same time. But by far the cleanest way to do this is to actually have somebody pick that glass up for you from behind their seat. Then when you pick the glass up, you're completely clean and they have no reason to doubt that this is exactly the same glass and you're way ahead. Okay, so remember, before you start the performance, you've obviously got that glass in your pocket, and the way I prefer to perform it is the spectator actually thinks that I'm going to pick this glass up from behind her chair, but that's obviously been removed by one of my colleagues or a waiter or a DJ. The spectator's actually reacting, so you've got a fantastic moment of misdirection. If you could just open your hand now, Romy. She's reacting to the key. And the method I'll show you very shortly, she actually thinks her own key has bent in her own hand. This is a very, very strong moment of misdirection. At this point, I will bend down behind their seat in a banquet situation, take the glass out of my pocket and bring it straight up. So I'll go out of sight and I'll come up. They have no reason to doubt that this is the same glass that I took off their table a few minutes ago. So if you just put that down and your hand down just for a second, Romy, I'll just explain what you've got to do. The basic psychology is the spectator sees this view at all times. So straight on, the glass looks perfectly straight. It's an optical illusion. And by keeping the fingers, in my case of your right hand, obscuring the bottom of the glass, you can't really work out with your eyes that it is already bent. It looks perfectly straight. Now, if you turn that slowly, obviously, it does actually bend. With the psychology of my performance, the spectator actually feels this happen in their own hands. Now, obviously, it's very angly because I can angle this for Romy now and your point of view at home, and it looks absolutely fantastic. But what about other people in a banquet situation? Well, I start off by basically bringing the glass up into view, and I start to rub here. Now in this position, my hand is actually covering the angle of the bend for everybody else. And I get through this first part of the routine pretty quickly. So if anybody else starts to work out what's happening and they start to look around, it's actually already bent and it's starting to happen. And then you normally get this lovely vibe spread through the room as, oh God, look, he's bending a glass, he's bending a glass. But actually, the dirty part of the routine is actually over with at this point where you're actually struggling with the angle. So pretty much straight away, I bring the glass up into view and I ask the spectator to hold their hand out in front of them. Now, Romy, you're looking pretty straight on there, and that looks straight, doesn't it, to you? It looks straight. The bad angle is over here, so I will start rubbing at this point. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to try this. There's nothing on my fingers all the time, blocking this area as I'm showing that there's nothing on my fingers. I'm shading this area. Nobody else can see this way. Even somebody at the side of her, if I keep my hands and arms in this position, they can't see anything. I say there's nothing on my fingers, this is just energy. And all I'm going to do, as I rub that stem there, as it's in contact with her hand, I keep lifting it up, and all I do is just rub and turn it very, very slightly, just a few millimeters, then put it back down on her hand. Sometimes I even let go, pick it up again, and rub. And it's quite freaky because you actually fool yourself with it. It really does look like it's bending, doesn't it? You can pick it up, rub again, and it looks like it's gone right over now, and it's done that in just a few seconds. So in real time, you would pick up the glass. I'm going to try something just with my own energy. There's nothing on my fingers here. You remember what happened to the key, but if I rub just there, it actually starts to bend. There's nothing on my fingers, there's no chemicals or anything, it's just energy. If you just rub, it just seems to bend over. You can actually see that bending very, very slowly. It bends over in your hands like that. And it's important to use phraseology like in your hands. Obviously, at this point, this is not happening in her hand, but it's on her hand. But this next bit, this is the bit she will remember. This is the visual work of art. This is the bit that will be fixed in their mind that they will tell people about later. In this position, I'll get the spectator to put their other hand on top. This is the moment they will remember. The reason is, the first bit, you sort of get over it pretty quickly. You only do the first bit for about half a minute. This bit you take a lot of time over. Again, you prove to them there's no chemicals on your hand, there's nothing, it's just purely energy. And you say to the spectator, just allow it to go over. Allow the glass to go over as you rub. And naturally, nobody ever fights this. Naturally, the spectator kind of can't help it because they want it to work. They will naturally let their hand on top move. And this bigger action up here actually covers the smaller action down here. You really can't see any movement at the bottom. Even though it does, you only see the larger movement. But this is the bit, this is the visual work of art. As you rub, you just say to the spectator, just allow it to go over. That's it, it's bending, allow it to go over. And they actually do it themselves. It's kind of like an idiomotor response type thing. They do it because they want it to work. And they're convinced at this point that the glass is actually bending over. And I have them screaming at this point. They can't believe it. It goes right over. And I stop and I say, it'll still go a bit more, a couple more millimeters. Let it go, just let it go. Not too much, it might crack. Nothing's happening, but all these things, they just layer it with impossibility that later on they'll refer to these moments. It was going on, I thought it was going over, I thought it was going to crack. But all this is just happening in their mind, but they actually see the glass go right over, a couple more millimeters, just let it go over, let it go over. Now, it's an absolute shock to the spectator when you say, I don't want to go any more because it might shatter the glass. But stand it on the table now, stand it on the table. And when they stand it on the table and they see the glass in that position, it's actually quite comical. Because remember, at the start of the routine, in their mind, they picked up that glass off their table. To see a wine glass like this is absolutely impossible. They can't think for a second that you've had a plumber's welder and you've gone to all this trouble. It looks absolutely impromptu after you've bent a key. And when they see that on their table, they cannot believe it. Now, a very nice touch here if you actually perform the effect about 30 minutes after you've bent the glass, you can actually get the spectator to feel the stem, tell them they'll feel the energy, and you can actually still feel the heat at this point. And I cannot undersell this for you, how strong this is for a spectator. When they feel that and you say you can feel the energy and they can still feel a bit of the heat there, they will not believe it. And at this point, I normally take a Sharpie out of my pocket, I sign the glass to the spectator, normally the person that's booked me for the gig, and hand it over to them as a permanent souvenir that freezes the moment of magic. And they take it home with them. You can bet that every single time a magician comes on TV and they've got friends around, they'll get that glass out of the cupboard and show their friends, and they'll walk around at the gig. And I see this happen many, many times. They'll walk around and they'll describe to everybody what happened. And the ironic thing is that they'll forget about the first bit. All they'll remember is this part where the glass actually bent over in their own hands, because this is such a strong visual work of art. You're going to have a lot of fun with this. Right now we'll take you through a couple of those effects that you'll need as misdirection before going into this handling. So, as previously discussed, it's very important that you have a strong moment of misdirection when you perform the switch of the glass. If you've already got an existing metal bending routine, I'm sure you're going to want to use that. In my opinion, the definitive work on this is the Jerry and Banachek Psychokinetic Silverware DVD. If you're wanting to get into metal bending, for me, this is the DVD to get and start researching. It's important that you have a very strong moment of misdirection and you prove that you can bend something that's straight, they see it bend, so you prove you can do it before you go into the actual bending of the glass. For me, I've got some thoughts on the tine bend, which is described on the Jerry and Banachek DVD. I go into that effect by using the comedy fork bend, which is literally the old effect where it looks like you're bending the fork on the table, but in reality all you're doing is letting that fork slip through your fingers, and it's gripped just by the third and little finger of your hand, and you'll just literally let it slip through there. As I come up at that point, I then put the bend in the tine, and this is the little extra that I'm sharing with you now. From this position, if you very smoothly come up to this position, you can actually display that fork, and in this position it looks very fair, it's very open-handed. I actually showed this to Steve Shaw Banachek, who's very impressed with this. It's a nice little display of the fork before you actually go into the tine bend. So you're like this, and then from this moment you don't have to put any pressure on. You start waving the fork and it actually does bend. It creates the illusion of bending as the fork goes forward, but just by displaying it in this position to start with, it's very fair, very open-handed, and it looks like nothing's happened at all. So that's a little subtlety there for the fork bending, the tine bend. Another really cool thing to do is actually bend a spectator's own key. So let's imagine they've got a bunch of keys, and normally a spectator has at least one key on a bunch that they don't know what it does. It's perhaps an old key from an old house, an old car or something like that, and you can actually bend their own key. Now, as long as it's a Yale key and not sort of a mortise lock key, you can do this using this method. I actually use this method, which is actually years and years old. It's something that I've seen performed by many, many mentalists, where you actually use another key to bend the spectator's key. And I introduce this key quite easily because it's actually the standard haunted key. And if you perform this effect on somebody that's over 20 years old, they haven't seen it. Unfortunately, this effect has made its way into lots of kids' magic sets, especially into the UK. And it's a shame because it is a great effect. But this is obviously the standard haunted key effect, where if you move your hand forward, the key will actually roll over and turn in your own hand, and you can actually control it so it goes over pretty slowly indeed. And I go into this by saying to the spectator, if you ask somebody to concentrate on an object, you can't make it move with the power of your mind. But if you say to a rational person, what if you got a whole football stadium full of people to concentrate? Could you make it move then? They'll say yes. With that in mind, watch the key, and I'll actually perform the haunted key effect. So you've actually got the excuse for bringing the haunted key, this standard key, into view. I will then ask the spectator if they've got a key, and we'll take it off the bunch of keys, and literally, under a moment of misdirection, the key gets inserted into the end of the haunted key, so you're in this position. Now, this gets put in this position in a nice relaxed way as you're talking, and you've got the bunch of keys on the table still, and as you reach forward and you create this misdirection and sort of say, have you got any other keys that you don't know what they do? You literally reach over and you bend the key, and literally you use your thumb and the pressure and you just push like that, and then you can take that key out of the haunted key and put the haunted key down, and you've actually put that bend in. But that happens in just a few seconds, just as you literally transfer that key to the other hand. You say, have you got any other keys? No, we'll use this one, it'll be fine. And the bend's already in there at that stage. But all you do, you just keep the end covered with your fingers. You ask the spectator to hold their own key with their finger and thumb. You can use a lot of psychology with this. They start to feel heat. I use a lot of patter that was actually influenced by Luc Jamay's book, 7 Deceptions, which is absolutely a fantastic book for patter especially, not necessarily for the tricks in it, for the patter that's used in these sorts of effects to really enhance them. And I can get the spectator convinced that they can feel heat. Another line I use is, the key starts to feel soft just under your thumb, and it feels like you can actually push your fingerprint into the key. And they'll always say yes, even though there's no way this could be happening. They just think it's happening. And all you need to do is just pull your fingers back away from the key, and obviously very slowly you start to make out it's moving, but you don't use any pressure. You just literally move your thumb back. And as you move your thumb back, they'll start to see that bend come into view, and you just stroke it, and you just tell the spectator they can see it bending, you can see it bending, it's going over, let it go, there's no pressure, it's starting to go over, and you just move your thumb further down to the end. The bend will become more apparent, and it will be an absolute optical illusion for them. They will actually see that key bend, and when you take your finger and thumb off the end, they can feel it, there's no heat, they can't feel anything, but that is their own key. And if it's quite a sort of thick Yale key, they'll not be able to bend it back, because you'll need that extra leverage from the other key to bend it in the first place, but they just don't take that in. So there's a couple of effects there. Like I said, you've probably got your own existing metal bending routine that you like to use, but if you want to use the key bending routine or the tine bend, feel free to use any of those methods that I've just discussed. So in my opinion, this is a great routine for close-up, but how do you use the same effect on stage? Well, it can be done. You can still bend a glass on stage. The spectator can still enjoy it that's on stage with you, but it can be appreciated by a full room of spectators. Now, to take us through the handling and the psychology involved with presenting the effect in this way, we're going to hand over now to Rodney James Piper, who's been presenting this effect for the last 4 years.
Hi guys, we're now going to take you through the bare bones of the cabaret performance. No theatrics, no flash stuff, just the basic stuff that makes this effect work for a cabaret environment. What you've got to remember, cabaret is very different. You're not just working for one person, but you're working for an audience in front of you, and also a spectator on stage who needs to experience the effect the same as the audience. And do remember, if she or he enjoys the effect, the reactions they give will amplify the effect 100 times. Let's have a little look and see this. We will be switching the glass, so we've got a glass that's already bent. I know David came up with a fantastic idea of switching or swapping a glass behind a chair. What we do is, and we're lucky in a cabaret environment, we control our rules, we can control our stage. What we actually do is, We have one of our staff switch the glass for us. I borrow the glass from a table, use it to hold billets or forks or knife or cutlery or whatever I'm using, maybe a watch. And then I leave that on the side after using that and come back to it later once it's been switched or swapped. The big difference between the cabaret performance and David's fantastic routine that he does is that you need to capture the response of the person on stage. So rather than having them facing you, you approach them from behind, come right around them, and thus letting the audience respond, and their response is being amplified 100 times by not only the effect here, but the reaction here. So let's have a little look and we'll see. We need to understand, I'm picturing here so the audience can still see the face. The glass is just below. And I've actually set up, just on the glass, a very small dot here. It's a small dot that lets me enable that I can get the exact focus point for the person on stage and for the people in the audience. I hold by 2 fingers. I know it's tempting to come in for 2 or 3, but as I say, 1 finger and a thumb, 2 fingers to hold it there, bring down and support. It's important now that you can see. Everyone can see this point, including the spectator on stage. And as she starts to talk and she starts to concentrate, she'll actually start to concentrate and see something start to happen. Now it's really important that you take it slowly. You encourage her, you thank her. As it starts to go, a small rub. And 1 finger's enough. It's very tempting to take 2, 3 fingers or a hand, but 1 finger makes it, there you go. And you can actually see as it starts to go. If I can just borrow your hand for me, you can just bring it up for me. You can actually see as it starts to go. It's not going to go a lot to start with, but the more you concentrate, the more you'll actually, there it goes, good. Good. Fantastic. It's really important at this point to encourage the spectator. Let them think that they're achieving the miracle. Brilliant, really good. And all you're doing is slowly turning. You'll actually notice that the natural balance and weight of the glass will start to turn it itself. You don't have to put a lot of work in. Good. And it's good to freeze at this moment. Tell them to support their hand, and you'll actually see. Good. You've done fantastic there. Very well done. We'll try again. Just a little touch more. Good. Let me just borrow your hand and just bring it up for me. And hold it there. Now at this point you've got a perfect moment. The person on stage is there looking directly at the glass. The audience is watching you. She's in control. The wording and the phrasing you can use will just help it suggest as it starts to trip over and dip over. As it starts to happen, you start to feel comfortable, confident. You'll actually realise at this point that the spectators actually feeling it happen. Good. Good. Just a little touch more. At this point, freeze. Hold for a second. And actually look at the point. You'll actually see where it's there. She will react. You can react. What's important is to get the reaction and put all of the praise, as you would say, on the spectator. Because when you finish with her, you'll get a fantastic moment of magic. One of your hands and place it underneath. Good. Place your other hand and place it on top. And you push your hands right the way around the bowl for me, sir. That's excellent. We're trying this together. It won't be me that'll do it, it'll be you be doing it. What's really important in a few seconds, I'm going to get you to open your eyes and just to concentrate on the back of the glass. As you concentrate on the back of the glass, I need you to imagine you're back in the years when you were younger. And you had complete control over the growth. 3, 2, 1, slowly open your eyes. And start to concentrate. Very good. That's fantastic. Slowly, you can start to see that. Wait for your headphone, you can see it. Good. That's good. Hold your headphone now. That's excellent. Concentrate more. If you just take your left hand and hold it for me under the stem of the glass. Right away under the flat for me. That's excellent. I'm going to try it a little bit more. That's good. Starts to go more. More. You can probably actually feel that for me, yeah? So yes, for me nice and round. That's good. That's very good. Just hold it for me there, make sure it doesn't drop. Good. Not perfect, but we should have just a little touch more. That's excellent. Actually take your right hand and hold it for me on top. That's very good. And what you're going to actually feel now this time, you're actually going to feel it like putting. You can imagine slowly as you start to concentrate, that's good. You can feel it starting to bend more. That's very good. Just start to let it go.
can see exactly what miracle Caroline created. Give Caroline a massive round of applause. And it's strange, Caroline, because I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you. I want you to double check and make sure that there's nothing special with that at all. I'm going to take this. I'm going to do a little signature here. And I'll put today's date. And what's really important, whenever you feel down, whenever you can't create something, you need to move yourself. Just imagine what you've done today. You did exactly what you did as a child. You created something very, very special. I know after the show, every single person in this room will ask to look at this. You're more than welcome to let anyone examine it. Keep it as a souvenir and have a magical life. Caroline.
Well, I believe I was sort of hypnotised, but I really wasn't aware of it at all. I was just sort of concentrating and listening to him, and yeah, I didn't really feel that it was sort of me doing it. It was weird.
Once again, thanks for purchasing this DVD, and to everybody that's encouraged me with this effect over the past 10 years or so. Thanks to Rodney James Piper as well from the House of Illusion. And if you find yourself ever taking a break in Spain at the Costa Dorada, it's just south of Barcelona, make sure you get yourself down here and actually see the great show the guys put on. They do a fabulous show of close-up magic. There's mentalism, there's illusions in the show. You wouldn't believe the level of show that's put on here every single night. Strongly worth a visit to the House of Illusion. You can check out their website at houseofillusion.net. And thanks once again for purchasing the Bending Wineglass DVD.